Victor loved me deeply for 10 years. Yet in the third year of our marriage, he was the one who cheated. When I watched him deliberately favor the sweet, delicate woman in his arms, willing to turn me into a laughingstock within our social circle, I decided to set him free. The day we walked out with the divorce certificate in hand, his voice was filled with regret for the past. If I could go back to when I was 17, I definitely wouldn't have liked you like a pathetic simp. Neither of us ever imagined that there would truly come a day when we returned to 17. What was even more terrifying was that, after going back to that year, I realized something far worse. The person I loved was never him. Chapter 1. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. Staring at the divorce certificate I had received just a minute ago, and at the man beside me who looked as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted, I suddenly felt that he was a stranger. 3 years ago, when I had just married Victor, he was so happy that he held up our marriage certificate and posted it across all his social media platforms. He said that marrying me was a wish he had made when he was 17. Not long after celebrating, he leaned in close to me again, his eyes shimmering with tiny sparks of excitement. In a low voice, he asked if I could tear up the marriage certificate. If it was torn, then we would be together for a lifetime. At that time, he was already the CEO of a publicly listed company. Yet he could still say something like that. Childish, wasn't it? 3 years later, he seemed to think so too. Because the original marriage certificate was missing, he dragged me around to resubmit documents for quite some time. Even under the scorching heat, all he cared about was finishing the paperwork as soon as possible so he could divorce me, completely ignoring the fact that I was on my period that day. How could someone who had spent 10 years with me not know how miserable my periods were every single time? But now, all he cared about was giving another woman an explanation. If you ever need help in the future, you can still come to me. Victor turned his head to look at me. On his phone screen was still the photo of our divorce certificate, which he hadn't had time to close. I forced a bitter smile. So, are you going to post the divorce certificate on all your platforms too? Victor's smile vanished, his tone growing impatient. Don't make a fuss, Alicia. You have to allow everyone the chance to regret their choices. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and didn't respond. Yes, he had liked me for 7 years, and we had been married for 3. A full 10 years, he said he regretted them. He felt that all those years of loving me wholeheartedly had been a waste. Because he loved me for 10 years, while I had only given him 3. I heard that the woman behind him was also from our high school, someone who had liked him ever since then. Her 10 years made Victor think of his own 10 years. While he had been chasing after me relentlessly, there had also been someone else worrying about him, loving him from afar. It was hard not to be moved. So that's why we got divorced. I said softly. No one said you weren't allowed to regret it. Now you're free. I lifted my head and gave him a faint smile. I'll be leaving first. Not wanting to be abandoned again, I took the first step away. Alicia, the love you give is really stingy. Victor suddenly called out to me. His eyes held emotions I could no longer understand. There was no need to respond. I chose silence. The ambiguity in his gaze finally dissipated, leaving only a faint sense of distance. He curled his lips at me slightly. Alicia, if I could go back to 17, I definitely wouldn't like you like a pathetic simp ever again. Chapter 2. Honestly, fate is ridiculous. I don't know whether it was trying to prove something, or uncover something long buried. I returned to being 17, my sophomore year of high school. The memories in my mind stopped at the moment I heard Victor say those words. The courage I had gathered for so long collapsed in an instant. I had meant to say a proper goodbye, but the moment I turned around, the corner of my mouth still tasted of salty, metallic tears. So when a car suddenly appeared from behind, I didn't dodge in time. All I heard was Victor shouting hoarsely from somewhere behind me. Victor, out of habit. I looked to the seat beside me, but that place was empty. Victor's new seat was now across an aisle from mine. When my gaze landed on him, he quickly looked away, as if afraid of being associated with me in any way. Looks like he came back too, and as if to prove what he had said, to cut ties with me completely, he moved from being my desk mate to an ordinary classmate separated by an aisle. Alicia, have you heard? Victor seems like he's going to confess to someone. The round-faced girl with twin ponytails in front of me blinked playfully. Victor liking me was never a secret. I tightened my grip on the test paper in my hands, forced a smile, and replied vaguely. But she was dissatisfied with my reaction and pouted. Aren't you touched? Touched by what? His first move after returning to 17 was deciding not to like me like a pathetic simp anymore. The words reached my lips, but I swallowed them. I pointed to the empty seat beside me and pressed my lips together. The person he's confessing to isn't me. He already moved. The girl looked confused, about to say something, when Victor's lazy, careless voice suddenly came from the aisle. A delicate pink gift box sat on his desk. Amid the teasing, he finally spoke. Yeah, I like Zoe from the next class. Any problem? The noise died instantly. Victor, this looks like it's meant to. The boy in front of me had just placed the pink gift box on my desk, when his smile froze. Victor, this. He stood there awkwardly, glancing uneasily at Victor. Victor shot a glance in my direction, stood up, took the gift box back, and said casually, "My bad, wrong delivery, won't happen again." Chapter 3. Even though I tried my best to avoid Victor after coming back, friends from other classes didn't know what had happened between us. So when one of them dragged me to Zoe's birthday party, and I saw a certain someone standing beside her, I didn't want anything to do with him and turned to leave. I wasn't close to Zoe, but we had met once during a summer piano class. After thinking it over, I stopped and wished her a happy birthday. Alicia, stay and have some cake. You can't refuse the birthday girl. Before I could answer, she hooked her arm through mine and pulled me inside, smiling brightly. Try the snacks on the table first. They're really good. Just a bit too sweet. Didn't expect Victor to look so rough but have such nimble hands. My gaze fell on the cookies on the table. The same familiar taste. I have a sweet tooth. Desserts outside always taste bland to me, never sweet enough. Sweets aren't essential. If they're not good, I can simply not eat them. But Victor never thought that way. He knew how to love someone. He wasn't particularly careful, so his hands were often marked with burns from the oven. He didn't mind. He would just place the finished desserts in front of me, again and again, until he made the version that suited my taste perfectly. Without realizing it, I had eaten all the cookies on the table. When I looked up, I met Victor's gaze. He stood in front of me, backlit. I couldn't see his expression. Good? His tone was distant. I nodded, then added, "But it's too sweet. Most people couldn't handle this." Yeah, my mistake. I held the last half cookie in my hand. When I took another bite, I could no longer taste anything. The friend who had been socializing returned to my side. She seemed to have sensed something and spoke uneasily. "Alicia, I'm really sorry. I didn't know what was going on between you two. Zoe is a new friend. I just thought I'd bring you along for fun." I shook my head and forced a smile. "It's fine. Victor and I aren't together anyway, and I don't like him. It's nothing." 17-year-old Alicia didn't like Victor, but me, carrying memories from 10 years later. Honestly, I couldn't let go that fast. I picked up the cake Zoe had handed out and buried my head in it, blocking my friend from asking more questions. The lights in the private room flickered on and off, watching the lively scene across the room. I suddenly felt dazed. My chest felt tight, hard to breathe. I had just stepped onto the balcony when I saw Victor holding Zoe, his face full of tenderness. "Zoe, I didn't know before how much you liked me. You suffered for so long. That won't happen again." He had started his new 10 years. This time, he would begin again with a girl who loved him back. An equal 10 years, one he probably wouldn't regret. Chapter 4. Only after that incident did I finally understand something clearly. Returning to being 17 was no longer something that could be changed. Victor chose a new beginning, and I simply returned to living the life of 17-year-old Alicia. 17-year-old Alicia was never meant to intersect with Victor's life. So I began, openly and calmly, to pay attention to Victor and Zoe's daily life. I had to admit, Victor was an exceptionally qualified lover. Zoe liked roses. He visited every flower shop outside the school, just to find the most perfect bouquet. Zoe liked pastries from the west side of the city, so he woke up early, bought them, and rushed back in time for morning study. Whatever Zoe wanted to do, he did it with her. No complaints. Thoughtful to the extreme. No different from the way he once pursued me, watching the two of them supporting each other ahead of me. I found myself staring, momentarily lost. Alicia, what are you thinking about? The class monitor waved a hand in front of my eyes, concern written all over her face. You've been zoning out a lot lately. Are you not getting enough rest? I shook my head, glanced at the sun climbing higher, and changed the subject. Let's head out early. It'll get hotter soon. This was a class outing. We had 2 every year. This time, it was hiking. Everyone was allowed to invite friends from other classes, so Zoe was part of this outing as well. From time to time, Zoe would pull Victor along to chat with me. She had heard that I was good with words, so whenever she encountered inscriptions on rocks she didn't understand, she came to ask me. Gradually, more and more people gathered around, forming a circle with me at the center. At some point, Zoe was squeezed out. Then she seemed to notice another unfamiliar script, and in her urgency, she linked her arm through mine, keeping me by her side. Alicia, you're amazing. Seeing the sincere admiration in her eyes, I felt awkward pulling my arm away, so the scene became this. One of her arms linked with mine, the other holding Victor's hand. The distance was too close. When Victor looked up at Zoe, he would occasionally meet my gaze, and then hurriedly look away. Alicia, I want to go check that place out. Do you want to come? She pointed toward another peak. I was already exhausted, so I declined without hesitation. I shook my head. I'll sit here and wait. You two go. For the convenience of hikers, several small pavilions had been built halfway up the mountain. When the wind blew through, it dispersed some of the heat from the climb. Oh no, my orange! Chapter 5. Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out behind him, and at once the oranges scattered across the ground began rolling in every direction. I hurried to help pick them up. When I reached for the last one, my hand collided with another, pale, slender, and long-fingered. I'll get it, he spoke. His voice was clear, yet it felt inexplicably familiar. My heart began to pound uncontrollably. I tightened my grip on the orange. My instincts screamed at me to look up, but my body froze out of nowhere, leaving me unable to move. Are you feeling unwell? He asked. As he spoke, he suddenly bent down, bringing his eyes level with mine, and there, behind the windbreaker, was that face. Fragments of memory burst forth from my mind all at once. The summer night after the college entrance exam, blood covering the ground, a boy in a white shirt, a confession that never arrived. Broken images flashed before my eyes, one frame after another, like a slideshow. Eric. I forced the 2 syllables out of my throat, only then realizing I was on the brink of losing control. You know my name? Do we know each other? He looked at me in surprise, raising an eyebrow slightly. I lifted my hand, wanting to touch him, afraid that everything before me was just an illusion. Then Zoe's voice suddenly sounded from behind me. Victor, why do you look so pale? At some point, Zoe had returned with Victor. Victor's face was frighteningly white. In the memories that had just resurfaced, Eric had died in the summer after the college entrance exam. His death dealt me a devastating blow. That year, I developed acute stress disorder and began to avoid everything related to Eric, until eventually, I buried him deep in my heart and completely forgot about him. And now, as everything that had been buried resurfaced, I realized in terror, the person I fell in love with at 17 was never Victor. Chapter 6. As for how things began with Victor, I don't even know where to start in order for it to feel accurate. During the summer when I developed acute stress disorder, Victor was the one who stayed by my side the entire time. Back in high school, his feelings for me were anything but subtle, but love has never been something that can reach a happy ending. Just because one person insists hard enough. I didn't like him. He refused to give up, and all I could do was ignore every advance he made. That entire summer, I drifted through each day in a fog, Victor stayed up with me until his eyes turned red, never missing a single one of my therapy sessions. He even gave up the university he had always wanted to attend, and filled out his application according to my choices instead. Through repeated treatments, I gradually recovered, with the help of medication. I also forgot what had caused my illness in the first place, perhaps for the sake of my health. My family collected everything related to Eric, and burned it all without telling me. As a result, for many years afterward, there was always a blank space in my memory, one I could never quite recall. After Victor entered university, he continued chasing after me relentlessly, cutting off every possible romantic interest around me. But whether someone was male or female never really mattered to me, because I realized I felt nothing, no spark, no attraction toward any of them. Deep down, though, I always felt I owed Victor something. He shouldn't have devoted himself entirely to me. After all, he had been there for me during my illness. I once tried, gently, to suggest that he try liking someone else instead. That sentence triggered the biggest outburst he had ever had toward me. I never dared to bring it up again. He kept chasing. I kept running. I told myself maybe one day he'd fall for someone else. Maybe one day he'd get tired and finally give up. I swear, I had never met anyone so stubborn and so brave. Yet Victor chased me for a full 7 years. When enough small things pile up, even an iceberg will melt, let alone a human heart. We skipped dating entirely and went straight into marriage. On the day we registered our marriage, he wore an expensive suit and cried like a child. But that man who loved me so deeply began, 3 years later, to complain that I had started loving him too late. He began to resent his own 10 years. So the arguments started endless and exhausting. Things spiraled out of control. And in the end, he cheated, just like so many men do. I heard he found a woman who had loved him for 10 years. That was when I finally stopped holding on. 10 years. That number was an insurmountable threshold. After all those long days and nights of deliberation, the decision he made was to abandon me, the woman he called cold-hearted and ungrateful. No one expected that we would truly return to being 17. He started a new life, gaining equal love with the girl who had secretly loved him for a decade. And I returned here to uncover what had been buried, to save the person I had loved in my youth. Because of the changes Victor made after coming back, the main timeline also began to shift, an uncontrollable butterfly effect. In the past, I hadn't gone on that hiking trip because Victor, while recklessly moving tables for me, had scratched my leg. This time, without those events, I went on the hike as usual, and I met Eric earlier than I ever should have. Eric, who was supposed to transfer schools the next day, and only then become my desk mate. Chapter 7. Hello everyone. I'm the new transfer student. My name is Eric. Please take care of me. I looked up, and our gazes met perfectly. When he noticed me looking at him, he tilted his head slightly and curved his lips into a smile, then turned to the homeroom teacher beside him. Teacher, that seat over there is empty. I'll sit there. Not until he picked up his backpack and sat down next to me did my tense body stop questioning whether this was all just an illusion. There's a saying that scent is the carrier of memory and emotion. When the familiar fragrance of orchid-scented laundry detergent drifted into my nose, my eyes reddened once again. Ah, sitting next to me makes you that upset? Eric froze mid-motion, awkwardly scratching the back of his head, clearly at a loss. Then, should I apologize? He had always been like this, not fully understanding what was going on, yet instinctively choosing to be the one who lowered his head first. Whether it was our first meeting, or the road he took to find me after the college entrance exams, even when he arrived early instead of on time, simply because I got there before him, he would still soften his voice and coax me. That day, he had promised to bring me lotus pastries, but he never came, and neither did the lotus pastries in his hands. A thick sorrow wove itself into threads deep inside my chest, nearly drowning me. I drifted through the entire class period in a daze. What pulled me back was a few peach-flavored candies that Eric placed on my desk. Sorry, I don't know why you're so sad. But I heard eating candy can make you feel a little better. He pointed at the candies, then smiled, revealing his tiger teeth. The entire day, I hadn't prepared myself mentally. Not knowing how to speak to him, it wasn't until the sanitation monitor reminded me in the evening that I remembered it was my turn for classroom duty. Alicia, your partner took leave this afternoon. You'll be on your own tonight. Thanks for the hard work. I nodded, waited until the classroom was nearly empty, then went to the corner to pick up a broom. I'll do it. You wiped the blackboard. I haven't been added to the duty roster yet anyway. Before I could react, a hand reached out from behind me. Eric took the broom straight from my grip. At that moment, a boy who had just finished playing basketball, sweaty and flushed, came back to grab his jacket and whistled at the back door. Victor, you're still not leaving? Waiting for me on purpose? I followed his gaze and saw Victor standing by the window at the back door, as if he sensed my eyes on him. He glanced at me briefly, then looked away as though nothing had happened. Zoe's on duty today. I'm waiting for her. I'm heading out. I'll play ball with you guys tomorrow. He grabbed his backpack, slung it over his shoulder, and left. I'll do it. Eric somehow had already finished sweeping. He took the eraser from my hand and focused on cleaning the blackboard. It seemed this time on duty, I hadn't done anything at all. His smooth sequence of actions left me a bit embarrassed, just as I was wondering whether I should offer to buy him some water or something. He spoke first. That harmless face suddenly leaned closer. The dimples beside his smile flickered into view. Hey, has anyone ever told you that your expression gives everything away? Since that's the case, how about you buy me a soda? Or you can choose something else. I'm fine with anything. Chapter 8. Eric had always been open and easygoing with people. After that small interruption, we quickly grew familiar again, especially since we were seatmates, seeing each other all the time. It was unavoidable, perhaps because we had met the day before he transferred schools, and then became desk partners the very next day. He firmly believed we were bound by fate, and treated me with a closeness he didn't show others. I'm treating you to a drink. I was a boarding student. He wasn't. There was a milk tea shop outside the school gate that was especially good. I loved their strawberry slush. I looked at the ice cubes still floating in the cup. Then at Eric's sweat-soaked hair. Did you run here? Extra sugar, extra ice. Drink it quickly, before it melts. He turned his head and wiped his sweat, deliberately dodging the question. But somehow, I couldn't shake the feeling that no good deed came without strings attached. In my previous life, Eric had always used that exact give-and-take logic to trick plenty of sweetness out of me. Only after he got busy with his own things did I finally insert the straw and take a sip. Hey, Alicia, I've got something to ask you. Last time I helped you clean, you bought me a drink. This time I bought you a drink. Shouldn't you agree to one condition of mine too? There it was, the familiar give and take, carrying memories of his death. It was hard not to soften. Deal? Seeing that I didn't object, his eyes lit up. Last time we went hiking, there were tons of people around you. They said you're really good with ancient texts and characters. I haven't heard you explain them yet. Next weekend, will you go hike the mountain near my place with me? This time, explain them just for me? He spoke a little too fast, the moment the words left his mouth. Both of us froze. Well, not just me. My friends from back home too. He quickly turned away, grabbed his Chinese textbook, and pretended to study it intently. Yet somehow, despite being mentally 27 already, my ears still felt warm. Chapter 9. When I arrived at the mountain as promised, Eric and his friends had already been there for a while, waving at me. In my previous life, there had also been a moment when I agreed to go hiking with Eric. It just happened much later than this time, and that was when I first met the friends he talked about. Hey girl, over here! A blonde guy with small curls next to him suddenly jumped up and waved at me. I recognized him. 10 years later, I had seen him on television. He became a local grassroots police officer, once praised on the news for maintaining excellent public security. Hey girl, you're really pretty. No wonder Victor last time on the hike, MMPH. You're probably thirsty. Without expression, Eric shoved a bottle of mineral water, already opened, into the curly-haired guy's mouth. "Let's go." The others just laughed quietly. Only the curly-haired guy choked on the water, muttering something unintelligible. "He's kind of loud and jumpy. Just ignore him." Eric placed the sun hat he was holding onto my head. The weather this week was much hotter than the last hike. By the time we reached halfway up the mountain, the water bottles were already empty. Eric called the curly-haired guy to go buy water with him. One of the others went to the restroom. That left just one quiet boy sitting with me in the pavilion. Someone who barely spoke, except occasionally asking me about characters he didn't recognize. When he noticed me looking at him, his hand wiping his black-rimmed glasses froze. He looked straight at me, just when I thought some obscure question was coming. He suddenly spoke. "Eric said last time he went hiking, he met a girl who looked kind of clueless but very cute. That was you, right?" So much for being quiet. Eric's been my brother since we were kids. Something happened in his family, so he transferred schools. He's a bit weird sometimes, likes playing little mind games. We can tell how he feels about you. I'm not asking you to indulge him, but if it's you, he'll figure it out and comfort himself. The more I listened, the more it sounded like a handover, even though I already knew how things would develop between Eric and me. This wasn't the time for romance. Just as I was struggling to respond, Eric returned. The rest of the hike went on without further breaks. To my surprise, I realized Eric wasn't clueless at all. There were even some characters he understood better than I did. After parting ways with his friends, he avoided my questioning gaze, clearly uneasy. "I'm going to buy something." After he ran off, I sat down on a roadside bench. Then a familiar voice sounded behind me. When I turned around, I saw Zoe in another boy's arms. They were kissing. Zoe's eyes were closed, her expression unmistakably willing. She was enjoying it. That boy's eyes looked very much like Victor's, but he wasn't Victor. Chapter 10. "No way, you didn't know Zoe and Victor broke up a while ago?" The girl in front of me stared at my blank expression, then suddenly covered her mouth and gasped in a whisper. Zoe was just mad at the guy she actually liked back then. Victor happened to show up, so she used him as a target to vent her anger. We all knew about it, but who would dare say it out loud? That'd be like sticking your face right into Victor's fist. "All right, I won't say more. Don't tell anyone I told you." She glanced in Victor's direction. Only after confirming he wasn't at his seat did she finally relax and turn back around. At that moment, I couldn't quite tell what I was feeling, until I ran into Victor again at the corner of the stairwell. Because of Eric's appearance, I hadn't paid much attention to anything else lately. Victor looked noticeably more worn down. As he passed by me, his hoarse voice called out my name. "Alicia, I think." I regretted again. Did I want to laugh? Laugh at how he believed he had started a precious new relationship, only to end up a joke instead? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What I felt was only sadness, and, strangely enough, a trace of gratitude toward him. If we hadn't gone that far, I probably would have stayed trapped with Victor in that twisted love, torturing each other for the rest of our lives. There would have been no chance to return to 17. I would have completely forgotten Eric, forgotten the boy who was as insignificant as a grain of sand, hidden in the cracks of time. He would have been erased entirely. I could move forward. But what about Eric? Was he meant to remain forever? In that summer after the college entrance exam? Victor, life doesn't give that many chances to regret. Heaven already gave you one. No matter what the road ahead looks like, just keep walking forward. Victor, who had been lowering his head, suddenly looked up at me. The bloodshot veins in his eyes were so dry and cracked it was frightening. I thought that at this moment, he must have realized it, that I, too, had come back. Only that realization could completely shatter his final illusion. Only that could make him understand how deeply 27-year-old Alicia had been hurt, that our relationship had long since split into a chasm impossible to cross. He couldn't cross over. I couldn't go back. It's not like that, Alicia. I was too jealous. I always wanted you to love me more. I never thought things would turn out like this. I ignored him and walked past. At the next corner, I thought I heard him crying. I figured that 27-year-old Victor had finally realized that he had used the wrong way to love. That love was even stronger than when he was 17. Yet he chose wrong again and again, until there was no way back. Perhaps that was the best punishment he could ever give himself. Chapter 11. After the college entrance exam, I fell into panic once again. In my previous life, Eric died on the night we had agreed upon, the night he was supposed to come and confess to me. Before the exam back then, he told me he had something to say after it ended, and asked me to wait for him by the small pond near my house. In truth, his racing heartbeat had already betrayed everything, but I still nodded obediently, ready to welcome that long-awaited confession that would finally tear through the fragile layer of glass between us. Yet as the agreed time approached, I never saw him. Already irritated, the cicadas outside only made things worse with their relentless noise. Unable to hold back, I called him, urging him impatiently. I never expected that would be the first time I lost my temper with him, and the last time he ever comforted me. He had only meant to buy me some oranges at an old grandmother's roadside stall. He never expected to run into a knife-wielding robber targeting her, nor did he expect that when he stepped forward, the criminal would actually stab him. The blade went in deep. Eric lay on the ground, his body twitching uncontrollably, like a dying fish. Blood soaked through the osmanthus pastries he had bought for me, and beside him, the flowers he'd carried, already crushed into pulp by passing cars, their shape unrecognizable. This time, I went to that same stall in advance. I bought all the fruit the grandmother had, sent her home early. I also changed our meeting place, at least 10 miles away from that street. Time ticked by, second by second, just as I was about to call him again. The midsummer cicadas screeching until my nerves frayed. Eric appeared. Summer days are long. The setting sun behind him cast a soft halo, blurring his outline until I had to squint to see him clearly. When he finally reached me, he pulled out a bouquet hidden behind his back and smiled. Looks like someone got a little impatient waiting. I walked 2 extra streets to find the peonies you like. Still, my fault. I should make it up to you properly. Don't you think so? My girlfriend. Chapter 12. Eric and I applied to the same university. From then on, Eric began his brand new college life, and I, finally holding the hand of the person I loved, completed the missing piece in my heart, and began my own college life. I don't know why, but Victor applied to the same university as well. There were better schools for the major he wanted. In my previous life, he had come here for me, but this time, setting aside all reasons, it could only mean one thing. He was stuck in the past, unwilling to move forward. Still, he never bothered me. Even when we ran into each other, he would only nod lightly and walk past. I finally relaxed, but Eric beside me started acting sarcastic. So sour, wonder which vinegar jar just got spilled. Only after being together for a while did I understand what that black-rimmed glasses guy meant by sarcastic. I didn't reply. Oh, I get it. Once you've got me, you don't cherish me as much. Now you can't even be bothered to talk. Fine, fine. Big sister knows it's hot, giving me the cold shoulder to cool me down. Seeing his words grow more and more outrageous, I don't know what came over me. Like a thief, I glanced around, leaned in, and kissed him. Now both of us fell silent. I've just been reading too many novels lately. Everything seemed to be moving along normally, yet for some reason, I started feeling anxious again, especially this time, after watching a movie with Eric. When we came out and saw a long line at the pastry shop, he heard that their osmanthus pastries sold really well, and ran off to queue. My panic hit its peak. Since returning to 17, I had never once mentioned osmanthus pastries, so when he suddenly brought it up, I didn't react in time. I only heard him tell me to wait where I was, before running off. Watching his figure grow farther and farther away, I was seized by the terrifying thought that once he left, he would never come back. I hurried after him, but fear weakened my limbs, my legs giving way beneath me. Tears burst out uncontrollably. Just then, Alicia, what's wrong? Victor appeared out of nowhere, like grabbing a lifeline. I clutched his arm, gasping for breath. Eric, help me find him. Please. He's at the pastry shop ahead, find Eric. My heart felt suspended in midair. My chest tightening in waves. My breathing growing rapid. My vision filled with overwhelming blood. Don't panic. I'll go now. Victor grew nervous, helped me onto a bench by the road. Then ran toward the shop. Before my heart could settle, a scream in the distance sent it straight to my throat. Someone shouted, "Someone's dead!" And the crowd erupted in chaos. My vision twisted, as if the world had been crumpled into a ball of paper. I couldn't breathe. The next second, everything went black. Chapter 13. Alicia. Alicia. Someone was calling me urgently. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Victor's reddened eyes. My heart thundered, and the last taut string in my mind snapped. Alicia, Eric isn't dead. Don't worry. Before I could completely break down, Victor spoke first. He's fine. Alicia, can you spare me a little time? I'm begging you. I didn't know why, but there was a grief in Victor's eyes that couldn't be dissolved, as if he might vanish into thin air in the very next second. At that moment, the words of refusal were swallowed back down my throat. Alicia, during those 3 years we were married, did you ever love me? I mean loving me, not treating me as Eric's substitute. He deliberately stressed the word substitute. But at that time, I didn't remember Eric at all. How could there have been a substitute? Victor, after treatment in my previous life, I never remembered Eric. Not a substitute, not a substitute. Victor suddenly collapsed onto the bench. Tears spilled through his fingers, trickling down his arms. Then why was it that you agreed to my confession, only after I gave you that scrapbook? I gave you the cookies I baked myself, the bouquets I carefully picked, concert tickets for your favorite singer, fireworks prepared for you on New Year's Eve. So many things. Why was it the scrapbook that made you say yes? The scrapbook. Suddenly, I remembered. Before the college entrance exam, Eric had also given me a scrapbook he made by hand. Victor's love finally received a response, yet he had mistaken it for my subconscious remembering Eric, and believing that was why I accepted his confession. Everything was disastrously wrong. Unspoken misunderstandings only leave people powerless. Alicia, I can't move forward anymore. He suddenly stood up and gently covered my eyelashes with his hand. Trembling uncontrollably, I heard him suppressing his grief, using the last trace of gentleness he had left. Alicia, it's time for you to wake up. Chapter 14. Eric. When I opened my eyes again, I realized that everything just now had been a dream. Alicia, you're awake. Eric rushed to support me in a flurry, but faster than his hands were his reddened eyes. I shouldn't have left you alone to buy the osmanthus pastries. It's my fault. Seeing him about to apologize again, I pinched his hand and laughed softly. It was real. Eric was alive. The accident avoided after the college entrance exam had replayed itself in a different form this time. I heard the attacker had already been arrested by the police. But, thinking of that strange yet vivid dream, an ominous feeling rose in my chest. Victor, is he dead? Eric glanced at me, then looked away. Speaking with difficulty, the attacker was targeting me. I didn't notice him behind me at first. By the time I reacted, he had already stabbed, and Victor. So even though Victor's return changed many events, triggering countless butterfly effects, the main thread had never changed. This time, however, Victor was the one left behind. He had taken Eric's fate upon himself. No wonder he kept telling me that he couldn't move forward anymore. That this time, I had to be happy. I think, this time, I truly can fulfill his wish. Chapter 15. I had only fainted and wasn't seriously hurt. So after 3 days in the hospital, I was discharged. But Eric was overly cautious, terrified that something might happen to me again, treating me like an ancestor. Walk slower. Watching him bustle around behind me, I suddenly felt mischievous. I blinked at him on purpose and teased, "So worried about me? What if I fainted in the dorm one day and happened to have no roommates around? If you ask me, TSK, Eric, how about we just live together?" I was only joking, but he fell silent again. his ears, and even his neck, turning bright red. Damn it, he took it seriously again. We didn't live together in college, but after graduation, we moved in together without ever having to say it out loud. After all, we were adults. Certain needs were rather strong, and besides, when a lost lover returns from the dead, I only cherish him more, especially in certain aspects, where I tend to be excessively enthusiastic. Like right now, he was pulling up his pants, clutching his belt tightly, looking at me with pure vigilance. What are you doing? There's nothing left, and I have to go to work. Seeing my displeased expression, he leaned in to kiss me softly, lowering his voice. Be good. Wait for me tonight. His work schedule wasn't very stable, so sometimes, when I got bored, I'd turn the whole house upside down. I just didn't expect that I'd actually find something. A Little Dog's Diary, 2002, 8:30. I met a girl while hiking today. She has a little cowlick on top of her head. Kind of silly, but incredibly cute. I couldn't help staring at her the whole time. Later, when I was helping someone pick up oranges at a pavilion halfway up the mountain, I ran into her again. I'm a materialist. But the moment she called out my name, I suddenly felt like this had to be fate. I vaguely remembered that in his previous life, he had the habit of keeping a diary too. Back then, his notebook had accidentally fallen to the ground. When I bent down to pick it up for him, the wind just happened to flip to that page. Transferred schools today. This place feels so boring, except for my new desk mate. The cowlick on her head is super cute. I really want to be friends with her. Or maybe, not just friends. Extra chapter, returning to 27. Beep, beep, beep. Amid a burst of chaotic noise, I opened my eyes and saw the life monitor beside Victor going haywire. Before finally flattening into 3 straight lines, he was dead. The last thing I remembered was chaos erupting in the crowd. Someone shouting that a person had died, and then everything went dark. Until I woke up here, according to the doctors. We had been in a coma for 3 months, and at any moment could have become permanently vegetative. But now, I was awake. Victor didn't make it. At his funeral, Zoe came as well. I'm sorry. She looked awful, forcing a faint smile in my direction. If it weren't for me, you and Victor wouldn't have ended up divorcing. And none of this would have happened. My condolences, but I knew that, with or without her, Victor and I would have reached the same end. Too many bombs had already been buried in his heart. His misunderstandings of me kept piling up, far beyond what a few words could ever untangle. Between him and me, it had always been a dead end. No need to apologize. Even if it hadn't been you, we still would have divorced. Hearing me speak so calmly, a flicker of surprise crossed Zoe's face, before it quickly collapsed back into that lifeless expression. If my guess was right, the boy she'd loved in her youth had developed stomach cancer in college and died within just 2 months, and Victor's eyes looked very much like his. When someone's mind collapses, they will abandon morality and desperately cling to any emotional anchor they can find. So she looked into Victor's story with me, and then she fabricated the tale of having loved Victor for 10 years. Victor used her to provoke me. She used Victor as a substitute. In the end, it was nothing more than mutual exploitation. Yet the one who truly got hurt was me. So even though Victor is dead, I still cannot forgive him. On behalf of my 27-year-old self, Zoe placed a bouquet of chrysanthemums down, softly said my condolences once more, and then turned to leave. To be honest, I don't feel much emotional turbulence right now, because returning to being 17 felt so real that it didn't feel fake at all. If that's the case, then the one who died there was Victor. So Eric, I don't dare to think about it. Life goes on, ordinary as ever. From time to time, I go to the west side of the city to buy newly released pastries. Though I deliberately avoid Lotus pastries, I also struggle online with college students to snatch concert tickets, just to see the singer I loved in my youth. But amid the roaring crowds, loneliness only becomes more painfully vivid. I miss Eric so much. I don't know whether he survived in the end. If he did, where would he be now? Would he still remember me? Ma'am, these oranges smell amazing. I'll take 2 kilos. What a coincidence. I ran into that grandmother from when I was 17 again. 10 years have passed. Her hair now completely silver. Yet she remains healthy and strong. I think she probably recognized me, because she quietly slipped 2 extra oranges into my bag, as I carried the bag and walked home. Something disastrous happened. The bag tore open. Even worse, it was downhill, watching the oranges roll farther and farther away. I hurried after them to pick them up. When I reached the very last orange, the back of my hand suddenly brushed against something cool. It was a pale, slender hand. Scent is the carrier of memory and sensation. That familiar lily-scented laundry detergent flooded my senses once again. I lifted my head in disbelief and crashed straight into eyes as deep and clear as still water. He froze for a moment, then narrowed his eyes and smiled at me, the dimples at the corners of his mouth faintly visible. Sorry, I don't mean to flirt, he said gently. But for some reason, I feel like we've met somewhere before, haven't we?